Chapter 2 of Drona Parva, to capture Yudhishthira. The two armies had been arrayed. The fight began. Under the leadership of Drona, the army had assumed a terrible aspect. They could forget Bhishma in this new excitement. Sahadeva was able to meet Shakuni in a single fight. Drona was accosted by the man who was to be his death, Drishtadyumna. Vivimsati, the brother of Duryodhana, tried for a while to fight with Bhima and found that it was not possible. Bhima had killed his horses and he split his chariot into fragments. Vivimsati had to flee from his fury. Bhurishravas fought with Shikandi. He was covered by the arrows of Shikandi, but he staved them off with arrows of his own. It was a good spectacle. The old warrior and the younger man were not satisfied with ordinary fightings. They were causing a great sensation by their duel. Ghatotkacha and Alambusa met in a fierce duel. It was fascinating to see these two. Both were masters in the use of Maya tactics and both were using it to the utmost limit. Chekitana met the Avanti brothers Vinda and Anuvinda. Virata encountered Radheya first. The army stood and watched with bated breath this first battle of Radheya. They were amazed to see the dexterity with which he handled the bow and the quickness of his hand. Abhimanyu fought several duels today. He was in very good form. No one could withstand his arrows. He was making the battlefield glow with his beauty and charm. He was deadly too. It was a wonderful sight to watch him fight. He fought a duel with Shalya. He was too powerful for Shalya. In fury, Shalya descended from his chariot. With mace uplifted, he approached the young son of Arjuna. Bhima came to the assistance of Abhimanyu. He challenged Shalya for a single fight with a mace. They looked like a tiger and an elephant which were about to attack each other. They won approbation from both sides. Both were excellent fighters with the mace, and it was a fight of no mean order. Only Bhima had the strength to bear the force of Shalya's mace, and only a Shalya could bear the power of Bhima's mace. It was a wonderful sight. Bhima once hit the mace of Shalya, which was flung away from his hand and fell on the ground like a torch. They went on fighting for a long time, but finally Shalya was felled by Bhima. Kritavarma came and took away Shalya in his chariot. Vrishasena, the son of Radheya, had come to the front today. He was like a comet which suddenly shoots into the sky, illuminating this entire sky and earth with its glow. He was harassing the army of the Pandavas. Sathanika, the son of Nakula, accosted him. He was finding it difficult to tackle him single-handed. The other sons of Draupadi came to his aid. Ashwatthama came to the help of Vrishasena. The field that day looked like the end of the world when 12 suns are supposed to shine all together. The many heroes vied with each other in valor, in brilliance, in grace and skill. It was indeed a glorious sight to see so many of them together. But the army of the Kauravas had suffered a great loss. Abhimanyu, Bhima, Satyaki, Drishtadyumna and Arjuna had been steadily destroying the army of the Kauravas. Drona thought that he should now set about the task of capturing Yudhishthira. He saw that Arjuna was not in the neighborhood of his brother. Drona's chariot came as fast as wind towards the Pandava host. Drona spoke to his charioteer. There, in the distance, can be seen the white umbrella of Yudhishthira. Our army is being shattered to fragments by the Pandavas. I will now proceed towards Yudhishthira and take him unaware. It is hard to think of fighting with my pupils. They are all of them my pupils. The Pandava brothers Drishtadyumna, Shikhandi and Satyaki. I have to fight with them all. But this is not the time for all these thoughts. I must hurry before Arjuna comes back. The army of the Pandavas was helpless against the fury of Drona. He was just flitting past them, raining arrows on all sides. He was making straight for the spot where Yudhishthira was. He now attacked Yudhishthira, who was taken by surprise. Yudhishthira fought valiantly, but he could not resist the onslaught of Drona. Drona cut his bow into two. He was just helpless. Drishtadyumna hurried to the spot to lend assistance to Yudhishthira. He chucked the powerful Drona as the land does the sea. The protector of the chariot of Yudhishthira was harassed by Drona. Drona hurt Shikhandi and Uttamaujas with his arrows. The sons of Draupadi were powerless against Drona. Satyaki came up and Virata too. They were all being defeated by the great Drona. Drishtadyumna realized the seriousness of the situation. He was fighting desperately, but an inhuman strength seemed to have come to the arms of Drona. He was just like the god of death. He was terrible. No one could do anything to check his advance. His advance was very fast. Drona was fighting for the sake of his promise to Duryodhana. He had to capture Yudhishthira. The Pandava army led by Drishtadyumna was fighting for the life of their king. They were losing. The people around said, Yudhishthira is sure to become the captive of Drona today. The war will be stopped now. Yudhishthira will go back to the forest with his brothers. Duryodhana will be happy now, and his father too. There was heard the sound of a quickly approaching chariot. It was the chariot of Arjuna. Krishna was driving the chariot as he had never driven before. They came faster than the wind. On either side of the chariot, the dead bodies of the soldiers of Drona could be seen. It looked as Arjuna was swimming across a river of blood. He now proceeded fast towards the chariot of Drona. The field was dark because of the denseness of the arrows of Arjuna. He routed the army of Drona. He harassed the greatest of all archers, Drona, with his arrows. He was wild with anger against his guru, who could consent to do such a heinous thing to please Duryodhana. He could forgive Drona for fighting on the side of Kauravas, but this promise of his to Duryodhana was unforgivable. It was an act to which he should not have agreed. They were all there when the game of dice was played 14 years ago. The horror of it could not have left the minds of righteous-minded men. This Duryodhana had planned another game of dice, and this guru of theirs had agreed to be an accomplice to this conspiracy. In that one moment, all the respect Arjuna had for his guru was lost. His mind was shocked and grieved by the behavior of his guru. Just yesterday, grandfather had fallen, and today Duryodhana was up to his mean tricks again. With his eyes raining anger and with his hands perpetually raining arrows against Drona, Arjuna fought furiously with his guru. Drona knew that he was beaten. He had a chance and he had tried to grab it, but he was not quick enough. Arjuna had come to the rescue of Yudhishthira. The sun had set already. No one noticed it. The two armies were withdrawn. Arjuna's face was still red with anger and indignation. The chariots of the heroes returned to the camps. It was night, the 11th day of the war. The first day of the leadership of Drona was over. It was more a day for the Pandavas, in spite of the wonderful feat of Drona. Arjuna had easily outshone his guru. Shri Krishnar Pranamastu. Chapter 3 of Drona Parva, the three Gartas. The armies had returned to their tents. In the Kaurava camp, Duryodhana was as usual dissatisfied with the way things were going. In the presence of everyone, he began to show his displeasure. He said to Drona, "My lord, you of your own accord offered to do something to please us. We asked you to bring Yudhishthira to us as a captive. You had a chance today, but you did not do it." Drona was upset by the words of Duryodhana. He said, "Of course I promised, but I had also told you that I can do it only if Arjuna is not in the neighborhood of Yudhishthira. I had almost captured your cousin Yudhishthira today, but Arjuna came there at the critical moment. I could not manage to defeat him. If it is possible to lure away Arjuna from his brother for some time, I will capture Yudhishthira for you." When these words were spoken, Susharma, the eldest of Trigarta brothers, said, "We brothers bear a grudge against Arjuna. We hate Arjuna. It will give us great joy to kill him. This grudge we bear him is a very ancient one. I have a feeling that the time has come when we can take revenge on him. All these days we have been fighting with him, but not to my heart's content. The suggestion of the Acharya is pleasing to us. We will challenge Arjuna to fight with us alone. There is no place in this world for the Trigartas and Arjuna. Either we kill Arjuna or we will be killed by him. My lord, tomorrow we will challenge him and take him away to the southern side of the field. It is not going to be a short fight. He is powerful and so are we. Before our work is completed, the Acharya can surely capture the eldest of the Pandavas. I am sure this suggestion of mine will be approved by all of you." The Trigarta brothers were Susharma, Satyaratha, Satyavarma, Satyayushu, and Satyadharma. These brothers now took a terrible oath in front of the blazing fire that they would either kill Arjuna or be killed by him. They would not return from the field of battle without their oath being accomplished. They were called the Samasaptakas since they got bound by an oath. The morning of the 12th day of the great war dawned. The army of the Kauravas was arranged in the form of a Garuda, the sacred eagle. The Pandava army was in the form of a crescent. Early in the morning, the Samasaptakas came to the front and challenged Arjuna. Arjuna was in a fix. He knew that Drona had promised to Duryodhana that he would capture Yudhishthira and surrender him to Duryodhana. He wanted to stay by the side of his brother all the time. Yesterday it was almost a successful attempt on the part of Drona. Arjuna had come just in time to avert the calamity. But now this new complication had set in. It looked as though this was a deliberate maneuver. But Arjuna was helpless. It was the rule that a Kshatriya should not refuse a challenge. The Trigartas were calling him out to fight. Unless he accepted that he was not able to fight them, he would have to go. Arjuna decided to fight with the Trigartas. He went to Yudhishthira and said, "The Trigartas are challenging me to fight with them. If I do not accept their call, the world will call me a cowherd. I am not a cowherd. I cannot refuse their challenge. My dear brother, I hate to leave you and go, but I have got to go. I am bound by the rules of war to go and fight with them." Yudhishthira said, "My child, you have heard about the promise of Drona to his king Duryodhana. Please make this promise false. You must fight with the Trigartas. I know that. I know that today is the last day in the lives of these terrible brothers. But you must make proper arrangements for my protection. I do not want to be captured." Arjuna said, "Brother, please do not be worried. This Satyajit, the brother of Drupada, will be here to protect you. So long as he is alive, no one can touch you. If, however, he is killed, I ask you as a personal favor to play the cowherd and run away from the battlefield. You must not allow the terrible Drona to capture you. You must promise me that you will run away if Satyajit is killed." Yudhishthira promised that he would. He blessed Arjuna and sent him to fight with the Trigartas. Shri Krishnar Pranamastu. Chapter 4 of Drona Parva, Supratika, Bhagadatta's elephant. The army of Duryodhana saw the white horses of Arjuna going towards the southern side of the battlefield. They were sure of the success of the plan of Drona. After Arjuna had left, the two armies clashed with the intention of destroying each other. Arjuna went to the southern side of the field. The Trighartas had arranged their army in the shape of a crescent. Just single-handed, Arjuna had to fight with his huge army. He did not mind it. While the chariot was proceeding towards the Trighartas, Arjuna said to Krishna with a slight smile on his lips, Krishna, look at these people who have made up their mind to die today. I am amused to see the Trighartas smiling. They must be weeping, but perhaps they are smiling because they are going to reach heaven. Considering the fact that they are such sinners, this is the only way they can go to heaven. Or else, they can never even get a peep into the realm of Indra. That perhaps is making them look so happy. Come, let us hurry. I must finish these people and go back to Yudhishthira. Arjuna took up his Devadatta and blew it lustily. The Trighartas were prepared for his coming. Their arrows greeted Arjuna. He returned their attack. Susharma and his brothers were fighters of no mean order. Arjuna was, of course, excellent. It was no wonder that the battle went on for a long time. Arjuna and Krishna were literally enveloped by the many arrows from the enemies. Subahu, one of the enemy kings, was now facing Arjuna. He was a very good marksman. Arjuna cut off his bow and then his hand. Then came Susharma and 10 great warriors. Arjuna was more than a match for all of them. Sudhanva was the first to be killed. The others followed very soon, all except Susharma. The army became nervous and there was a general scramble towards the main army. Susharma was very angry with them. He said, "You have all sworn that you would win or die. It is not right that you should all run away and face the sneer of all the others." They all came back because they had to. Part of this army was made up of the Narayanas, the cowherds who had been given to Duryodhana by Krishna. They all came back to fight. Arjuna was slightly irritated by the return of the army. He was hoping that it was the end of the fight. He said, Krishna, they have decided to die. They are not fond of their lives. I can see that. Watch me kill all of them. Even as he was saying this, Arjuna was caught in a rain of arrows. They were coming so fast and so very thick that he could see nothing. The chariot of Arjuna could not be seen. He was furious. He now thought that the time had come when astras should be used. With his forehead wrinkled up with a beautiful frown, Arjuna blew his Devadatta. He invoked the god Tvashtar and sent the astra. It was a wonderful astra. It made the soldiers see thousands of Arjunas and thousands of Krishnas. Each man thought that his neighbor was Arjuna. They were all killing each other. There was a complete massacre of the army of Trighartas. Those who remained assaulted Arjuna. They were now being killed by Arjuna in hundreds. But the Trighartas were undaunted. They covered up Arjuna and Krishna with their arrows. The darkness caused the great fatigue to Krishna. With his body wet with sweat, Krishna gasped out, Arjuna, where are you? I cannot see you. I cannot see anything. These arrows are overpowering me. I do not know if you are alive or dead. Arjuna was wild with anger. He invoked the astra called Vayavya. There was then a terrific gale. The cloak of arrows disappeared in a moment. Arjuna and Krishna could now see the army being borne on the field by the gale. The soldiers looked like so many dried leaves being carried away by the breeze. They could not withstand the fury of the Astra. Several of the great warriors on the side of Trigartas were killed by the two Astras sent by Arjuna. Arjuna was hoping that he was now free to go back to the spot where Yudhishthira was fighting. Arjuna did not know what havoc had been caused by Drona. In the meantime, the main scene of the fight was going on. Even at the beginning, Drona advanced towards the spot where Yudhishthira was stationed. His intention was to capture him as soon as he could. He knew that Arjuna was powerful. He did not know how soon he would return from his fight with the Samasaptakas. He therefore hurried to the presence of Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira had Drishtadyumna by his side. He said, "We must be careful not to let Drona capture me." The commander of the Pandava army smiled at Yudhishthira. He said, "He might have promised to do so. But my lord, it is not easy for him to keep up his promise when we are all here to see that his words are just words." Drona, in his desire to please that hateful Duryodhana, has undertaken to do a very mean action. It will not happen. We will punish that man for his unrighteous action. When Drona, in his desire to capture Yudhishthira, advanced towards the Pandava army, he found that Drishtadyumna was already advancing towards him. This made Drona pause for a moment. He was not pleased to meet Drishtadyumna, who was to be his death. It looked like a bad omen to the superstitious Drona. He avoided him and went forward. He was met by the army of Drupada, which was stationed to protect Yudhishthira. Just to distract the attention of Drishtadyumna, Durmukha, a brother of Duryodhana, came and challenged him. Drishtadyumna covered him with his arrows and he tried to fight with Drona at the same time. Durmukha kept on harassing Drishtadyumna. It was a good duel. In the darkness that had been caused by the arrows of Durmukha, Drona managed to get past the defense put up by Drishtadyumna. He had come very near Yudhishthira. Drona looked like a lion which had come to catch a calf which had been separated from the cow. Satyajit was there defending Yudhishthira. He attacked Drona. Satyajit had his bow cut up by Duryodhana. He took another bow and continued to fight. Another brother of Drupada, Vrika by name, came to the help of his brother. Drona harassed them both with his powerful arrows. Drona killed valiant Vrika. This infuriated Satyajit. He sprang at Drona and killed his charioteer. He cut the bow of Drona into two. Drona cut off the head of Satyajit with an arrow shaped like a half moon. When they saw Satyajit killed, the Pandava army was shocked. The Kekeya brothers and the other brothers of Drupada came to defend Yudhishthira. Virata was also there. They saw Drona making straight for the chariot of Yudhishthira. Virata's brother by name Satanika came to the front. He tried to prevent Drona from approaching Yudhishthira. He fought well, but Drona cut off his head from his body. Seeing three great heroes killed within a few moments, the Pandava army became panicky. No one could come near the dreadful Drona. The battlefield seemed to be the stage set for the death dance of the god of death. Shikandi, Vasudhana and Satyaki were the next three who came to challenge Drona. But he was undaunted. He was able to send them back with his terrible arrows. They were not arrows, they were like live coals which burnt up anyone who came near. Drona had come very near Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira remembered the instructions of Arjuna. He mounted the fastest horse he could get and rode away from the field. The Pandava heroes could not help being frightened of Drona. They could not stop his onslaught. He was worse than Bhishma in his fury. Several of the brothers of Drupada and Drishtadyumna were there fighting with him. The prince Suchitra fell down dead. All over the field could be heard the shouts, "Kill Drona! Kill the bloodthirsty commander!" But no one could kill him. He routed the entire army, but he had not been able to achieve what he set out to achieve. He could not capture Yudhishthira in spite of this ruthless killing. Duryodhana was standing in the middle of the field with Radeya, watching the panic in the army of the Pandavas. Duryodhana was extremely pleased with Drona. He said, "Look, Radeya, look at the great army of the Pandavas being routed by our Acharya. The heroes on their side are not able to meet Drona. I have a feeling that they will never think of war anymore. They are too busy avoiding the arrows of Drona to think of fighting with him again. Look at Bhima. He is not able to meet the Acharya. He is realizing that our Drona is too much for him. The Pandavas will now give up hopes of living through this day. They will give up all thoughts of the kingdom. I am sure of it." Radeya did not like the speech of the king. He said, "My friend, do not think so lightly of the great Pandavas. They are not cowherds, nor are they people who will forget the past. They are powerful warriors. They are heroes. They are spirited people. Do you think they will forget the several injustices done to them? Do you think Bhima will forget the poisoned food you gave him when he was a small boy? How can he forget the city called Varanavata? Can he forget the game of dice? Can he forget the 13 years of suffering that they had to undergo because of you? Please do not lull yourself into a sense of false security because of the passing success of your Guru. They will certainly fight back. They are all not ordinary heroes. Think of Satyaki and Drishtadyumna and the Kekeya brothers. Look, my lord, Bhima is coming along with his eyes red like live coals." The other heroes are now following Bhima like a crowd of rain clouds surrounding the sun. I have a feeling that the great Acharya is now in a precarious position. It will do well if we go to his assistance. It looks as though he needs it badly. Duryodhana was slightly disconcerted by the words of Radeya, but he saw the truth of it. With his brothers, he went to the help of Drona. Radeya was with him. There was then fought a great fight between the two hosts. Nakula and his brother were burning up the Kaurava army. The sons of Draupadi were in the front causing great destruction. Abhimanyu was as wonderful as ever. The usual duels were fought. The fact that Yudhishthira had escaped without being captured by Drona put new life into them. The elephant army of Duryodhana was being destroyed by Bhima, as was his custom. Then came Bhagadatta with his magnificent elephant Supritika. This appearance of Bhagadatta was a terrible thing. His elephant was invincible. It was a great source of danger to the Pandava army. They dreaded the sight of this fine elephant and the equally fine Bhagadatta seated on it like the Lord of Heavens on his elephant, the Airavata. This elephant seemed to enjoy annoying Bhima. It would always make straight for Bhima and his chariot. It was the same today. It broke the chariot of Bhima into splinters. The army was terrified. Everyone thought that Bhima had been killed by it. Yudhishthira came there with Panchala army. He was afraid for Bhima. The elephant was now bent on destroying the army. The king of the Dasharnas brought his elephant. Yudhishthira covered Bhagadatta's elephant and the rider too with many of his sharp arrows. But they fell on them just like raindrops. The fight went on. Bhagadatta now prodded the elephant with his toe. It made straight for the chariot of Satyaki. In a moment, the chariot was just a heap of wood and metal. If he had not jumped out in time, Satyaki would have been killed in a matter of moments. The elephant proceeded once again against Bhima, who had come again to the front. Bhima was caught in the trunk of the elephant. The elephant had wound his trunk round the elephant had wound his trunk round the form of Bhima and lifted him up in the air. It would have dashed him to pieces if he had not managed to extricate himself. Bhima got under the elephant. He began to harass it by making it turn around and around. He was standing between its legs and annoying it. The elephant tried to kill Abhimanyu by rushing against his chariot. He saved himself by jumping out nimbly. The army of the Pandava was held at bay by a single elephant. He was terrible. They could do nothing about it. Bhima had met his match. He could do nothing to this one elephant. The sight of Bhagadatta seated on its neck, sending arrows and javelins in all directions, was causing panic in the army. There was terrible shouting of agony from the Pandava army and of joy from the Kaurava army. The noise resounded in all the four quarters. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Chapter 5 of Drona Parva, the fall of Bhagadatta. Arjuna heard the sound from a distance. He had just routed the Trigarta army with his Vayabhyastra. He said, Krishna, Bhagadatta, the king of Pragadjyotisha, has come with his elephant. I can guess that by the deafening noise from the army. That elephant cannot be hurt, neither can its rider. I think I must go there now. Only you and I know how to tackle this Supritika. Bhagadatta, the friend of my father Indra, is too sure of himself. I must teach him a lesson. He is a great man. He is an old man. He has one name as one of the noblest of men who has walked the earth. This noble man has taken the side of the Kauravas. I have got to kill him and his elephant. For the last so many days it has done enough mischief. Bhima is unable to do anything to this elephant. Come, let us go. Krishna turned the chariot. The moment the chariot was turned, the Trigartas called Arjuna again to battle. Arjuna was caught on the horns of a dilemma. He knew that his army was suffering because of Bhagadatta. He had to go there. Here were the Trigartas calling him to fight again. He did not know what to do. He had to choose. Finally, he decided to fight the Trigartas first. Their attack was terrible this time. Krishna said, Arjuna, send the astra called Vajra and destroy these sinners. They are becoming impossible. Arjuna invoked Indra and sent the Vajra, the personal weapon of Indra. It rained havoc in the Trigarta army. It was a great achievement. Krishna was very pleased with Arjuna. The chariot was once again turned in the direction of the main fight. Shusharma had not been killed. He still had a few of his brothers. Again he challenged Arjuna. The temper of Arjuna was frayed. He was exasperated by these devils. He spoke to Krishna. Look at this, Shusharma. He has appeared again from the beyond to challenge me. My ears are becoming deaf hearing the cries of our harassed army, which has been caught up in the coils of Bhagadatta and his elephant. I really do not know what to do. You have the reins in your hands. You lead the chariot where you will. I leave the decision to you. Krishna did not speak a word. Quietly he went towards the Trigartas. Arjuna fought as he had never fought before. In a few moments, one of the brothers was killed. Arjuna now fought till the entire army began to run away. He made Susharma faint in his chariot by his arrows. Krishna stood up in his chariot. He grasped the hands of Arjuna in his and said, Arjuna, today you have fought wonderfully. You are the greatest archer I have seen. You have routed the Trigarta army single-handed. I am proud of you. Arjuna was very happy to hear the praises of Krishna. They hurried towards the main army. Looking at the white horses of Arjuna galloping towards them, the Pandavas heaved a sigh of relief. They all looked in the direction of Arjuna. The Kaurava army began to falter. The bow of Arjuna was proving its name as the most terrible bow that had ever been drawn against enemies. The joyful shouts of the Kaurava army began to change its tone now. The army was being slaughtered. Arjuna had been fighting since morning with the whole army of the Trigartas. It was not an easy fight. On top of that, he saw the ruin that had been wrought in the army. He looked like Kartikeya, the son of Shankara, when he went to fight with the Asuras. Arjuna advanced towards the spot where Bhagadatta was stationed. Arjuna's chariot was brought up in front of Bhagadatta. Bhagadatta immediately attacked Arjuna with his elephant. A rain of arrows was shot by the old veteran from atop of the elephant. The arrows were stopped midway by the counter arrows of Arjuna. This duel went on for some time. Bhagadatta became impatient. He made his elephant advance straight at the chariot of Arjuna. Krishna drove the chariot so very skillfully that he managed to avoid the coming elephant. It missed the mark by a very narrow margin. For a moment, everyone thought that Arjuna and Krishna had been crushed by Supritika. Again, the old king began to pour his arrows on Arjuna. Several of them were aimed at Krishna. Arjuna snapped the bow of Bhagadatta into two. Bhagadatta had a number of javelins to throw. Arjuna allowed 14 of them to be thrown and he broke every one of them. Arjuna concentrated on breaking the armor of the elephant. A powerful Shakti was now hurled by Bhagadatta at Krishna. Arjuna broke that and two more of them which were being sent one after another. Bhagadatta sent another at Arjuna. It hit against the jeweled crown of Arjuna. Setting it right with one hand, Arjuna kept on sending arrows with his other hand. He cut the bow of Bhagadatta. With another bow, Bhagadatta began to harass Krishna. It looked as though he was angry with Krishna than with Arjuna. This bow was also broken. The old king became very angry with Arjuna. He had been till now undaunted, and this steady return from a man much younger than himself irritated him perhaps. In a mad fury, Bhagadatta threw a goad at Arjuna, the goad which was used to lead the elephant. This goad, however, was not just any weapon. Bhagadatta had invoked the great Vishnu, and it became the most terrible of all astras. It sped towards Arjuna like a hawk bent on killing a doe. All the people were looking at it with their blood frozen. It looked like the end of Arjuna. In a moment, Krishna stood up in the chariot and took the full impact of the astra on his beautiful chest, which was decked with the jewel called Kaustuba. Bhima embraced Yudhishthira when he saw that Arjuna and Krishna were both well. There happened a miracle. The goad, the great Vaishnavastra, fell on the chest of Krishna, and the people around saw it change into a garland of flowers. They were amazed at the sight. Arjuna was upset at the thought that Krishna took the dart on himself. He looked at him and said, "Krishna, why do you have to do it? I am here. Why did you come between me and the goad which was aimed at me? You should not have done it. It looks as though you are breaking your promise not to take an active part in the war." Krishna smiled and said, "You are right, Arjuna. I should not have done it. But, my dear friend, it belongs to me and I took it back. Once in a wrong moment, I gave this Vaishnavastra to Prithvi, who was the mother of the great Naraka. She wanted him to be immune from every weapon. He had it with him. I killed him later. This astra was given by Naraka to Bhagadatta. If it is aimed at anyone, it will just have to kill the victim. I cannot afford to lose you, Arjuna. That is why I had to come between you and the Astra. I am sorry, but now this Vaishnavastra has come back to me. It was because he possessed this that Bhagadatta was till now invincible. He has thrown it away. He has lost his immunity, and his elephant too is now like any other elephant. It will not be hard to kill him now. Be quick, Arjuna. Arjuna sent a sharp arrow towards the elephant called Supritika. The arrow entered the head of the beast. It went right into the elephant. The magnificent animal collapsed on the field. The elephant of Bhagadatta would never more harass the army. It was dead. Arjuna aimed a sharp crescent-shaped arrow towards the chest of Bhagadatta. It pierced his chest. The great Bhagadatta fell down from the elephant. They were both terrible to look at, the grand king and his grand elephant. There was no one to equal either of them. The death of Bhagadatta was a great incident in the fight between the two armies on the second day of the leadership of Drona. Arjuna descended from his chariot. He made a pradakshina round the fallen Bhagadatta. He had to pay his last respects to a great man. Bhagadatta was the friend of his father. He was one of the noblest ancients. His fame was great. Arjuna saluted the great man and returned to his chariot. This gesture of Arjuna was greatly appreciated by all the heroes on either side. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Vishnumayeti Shabditaha Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Nidra Rupena Samstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matra Rupena Samstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Chitti Rupena Ya Kritsnametad Vyapya Stita Jagat Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 6 of Drona Parva, Drona's Promise. Arjuna went back to the field. The sons of King of Gandhara were ready to meet him. They were good fighters, and the fight went on for some time. Finally, Arjuna killed both of them. Duryodhana and his brothers were grieved to see the death of their uncles. Shakuni came up to avenge the death of his brothers. His army was routed by Arjuna. Shakuni was rather good at fighting with the use of Maya tactics, and he tried it on Arjuna. But it was futile in front of Arjuna's astras. Arjuna said, "Listen to me, you cheater. This Gandiva of mine does not know how to throw the dice. It can only throw sharp arrows which are like fire. Come and face them if you can." Shakuni had to give up and go away from the presence of Arjuna. The noise of the Gandiva struck terror into the hearts of everyone there. They all rushed to Drona for succor. Arjuna had been joined by the other members of the formidable team: Bhima, Satyaki, Drishtadyumna, Abhimanyu, Nakula, Sahadeva, Shikhandi, and the sons of Draupadi. Drona now advanced to check the progress of these men. Wherever he went, Drona was met by Drishtadyumna. Yudhishthira came to the front. The sight of Arjuna made him happy and bold enough to come to the presence of Drona. Duryodhana's brothers met Yudhishthira. Ashwathama came to the help of his father. He was spitting fire. He was wild with the Pandava warriors. There was a prince called Nila of Mahishmati. He was a brave young man and a very good fighter. He had been causing quite a lot of damage in the Kaurava army. Ashwathama went to him and challenged him. "Fight with me, I am here to defend the army." They fought, and Nila was killed by the powerful Ashwathama. The Pandavas were infuriated by the death of the young prince. They attacked Ashwatthama and the fight became general. Bhima rushed on the army. Drona fought with him. Radeya joined Drona. All the warriors on either side joined in the fight. It was a grand sight to see them all together. Arjuna and Radeya met in a duel. Everyone was watching it with fascinated eyes. Radeya sent the Agneyastra and Arjuna quenched the fire from it by his Varunastra. The spectacle was magnificent. There were others who joined in the duel and made it general. Arjuna killed Satrunjaya, one of the good fighters on the side of Kauravas. Drishtadyumna killed several more of them. Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva, Drishtadyumna, Satyaki, Arjuna and Abhimanyu were fighting against Drona, Radeya, Ashwatthama and Duryodhana. When the fight was still going on, the sun set on the gruesome scene. The fight was stopped and both the armies returned to their camps. The 12th day of the great war ended. Arjuna had today achieved something that was considered impossible. He had been able to defeat the Samasaptakas and he had killed the great Bhagadatta and his elephant. The army of the Kauravas had suffered a great loss. The Kaurava camp was sunk in gloom. All the Kauravas were thinking of only two things: the valor of Arjuna and the fact that Duryodhana was not able to capture Yudhishthira. Duryodhana spoke to Drona with great sorrow and disappointment in his voice. The tone was that of a sulky child which had not been given what it wanted. He spoke words which looked as though they were just affectionate and chiding, but were actually very harsh and cruel. Bhishma had been used to this tone. Drona was not. He had been the commander for only 2 days. He did not know that it was not possible to please Duryodhana, try as he might. The fact that he tried would not be noticed by the king. Duryodhana remembered only one thing: Drona had promised to capture Yudhishthira and that he would bring him as a captive. He had failed to do what he promised to do. He said, "It is obvious, my lord, that your honored self is sympathetic towards the opposite side. Nothing else can explain the fact that Yudhishthira could not be captured by you. You told us that if Arjuna is away from the spot, not all the gods in the heavens could prevent you from capturing Yudhishthira. Evidently, you have deliberately let the chance pass you by. Arjuna was lured away according to your wishes, and Susharma has lost all his army and several of his brothers because of you. You are just fighting mildly with your favorite Pandavas. Or perhaps you are overrating your strength. You granted us a boon and now you are not keeping your promise to us." Drona was touched to the quick by the cruel words of Duryodhana. Bhishma was at least the grandfather of Duryodhana. The bonds of affection made him unmindful of the tone of his grandson's words. But Duryodhana could not brook the sarcasm in the voice of Yudhishthira. He broke the sarcasm in the voice of Duryodhana. He was very upset. He said, "You know, I tried my best. I had almost done it. Yudhishthira ran away before I could do anything about it. Arjuna came back. Nothing could be done after that. I assure you that in tomorrow's battle, I will see that one man, one great warrior, one Maharathika on their side is killed. I am going to arrange my army in the formation called Chakravyuha or Padma Vyuha. It cannot be broken by even the gods. Arjuna, of course, knows the art of breaking up that phalanx. He must be lured away from the battlefield. He must be away for the day. I will achieve something for which you will thank me. I am sure of that." Duryodhana was pacified. The Trigartas agreed to challenge Arjuna once again. There was great excitement in the Kaurava camp. Tomorrow something terrible was to happen. Drona had assured them of that. They were eagerly waiting for the sun to rise. Om Dhum Durgaya Namah. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Krishnarpanamastu.